Today I'll be showing you how to make vegan seitan bacon.
Hi everybody, my name is Rachel and Bert. Some of you may have seen my first video, Intro to Seitan. I'm going to do another one. I hope you guys liked it. Today I'm actually going to walk you through the steps of how to make a seitan recipe. So there are tons of different types of seitan to make. There's tons of methods. For the first one, I wanted to stick really simple, something that didn't take a lot of ingredients, things you probably most likely have at your own house, especially during quarantine. And then I also stuck with something that could be ready by the end of today, because I know I like instant gratification in the kitchen. If a recipe's long and drawn out and I can't eat it till tomorrow, forget about it. That's one of the things that really turned me off to seitan when I first started thinking about making seitan myself. So this recipe is super quick. I'm going to have it posted in the link as well. It's not my own. It's from a gentleman who goes by the name of the Vegan Rapper on Facebook. I think he has his own business too, but he posted this recipe on the Vegan Seitan Appreciation Society. Highly recommend that Facebook group. I know I mentioned it in my previous post. So let's get started. It's my first time making videos, so I'm not really good at editing. Bear with me on this. First, we're going to go over the ingredients, okay? Okay, we're going to start by going over the ingredients. First, of course, you need the Vital Wheat gluten. I buy this in bulk at the co-op. Then we're going to include some maple syrup, smoked paprika, soy sauce, onion powder and garlic powder, a little bit of salt, some vegetable oil, apple cider vinegar, liquid smoke, chickpeas. Now make sure to note you're using the liquid in the chickpea can too, so don't get rid of that. We've got our miso paste, and last but not least we have beetroot powder. So the recipe I am posting calls for food dye, pink food dye, but pink food dye is usually not vegan, the ones we can find around here. So I looked online, it was kind of expensive. So what I decided to do was I decided to use beetroot powder, because a lot of seitan recipes that want to get that reddish coloring use beetroot powder. So I'm going to try that. This is my first time doing it. We'll see how it goes. I bought this beetroot powder on Amazon, but you can also buy it at the Latham Walmart in the baking aisle. Alright, so I reserved the chickpea liquid. I just drained the chickpeas into here. You need 250 milliliters of chickpea liquid. And 1 can of chickpeas isn't going to have that in it, so what the recipe has you do is just fill up the rest of the jar until you get with water to make up the amount that you don't have, okay? So when I poured the can in, it was about at 200 milliliters, so I just had to add a little bit of water. So we're going to combine the chickpeas, the chickpea liquid, and the water, and a few of the other ingredients. Tell you what those are in a minute. Okay, so we're going to combine 1 tablespoon of the garlic powder, 1 tablespoon of the onion powder. So this is all the flavoring. And I think I mentioned in my other video that flavoring is really a personal preference for seitan. A lot of people that make seitan on their own don't follow recipes once they've gotten good at it, because it's really just about personal preference. Okay, so I added the 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, the 1 tablespoon of onion powder, and now we're also going to add 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika. Now remember, we're making bacon, so we're going to want that smoky flavor. You know, I was kind of shocked. I was adding 1 tablespoon of paprika when I did this, but it's not too hot at all. After I made this recipe, I really liked it, so I ended up going to the co-op and getting a bunch of these seasonings in bulk. So, like, because 1 tablespoon is a lot for onion powders, and we're adding 1 tablespoon of liquid smoke. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And really get that smoky flavor going. I love this recipe too, because it's just tablespoon and teaspoon. You're not really messing with a whole bunch of the other ones. Alright, we're going to do 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. Gives it that little bit of sweetness to it. In we go. We've got our 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. Oh, by the way, I have my food processor out. I didn't mention that. I think you could also use a blender for this, but food processor is probably going to be best. Okay, we got the vegetable oil. Oh, and we need 2 tablespoons of the miso paste. So a lot of flavors that kind of have that salty vibe to them going on. All right. The one thing I love about this recipe too is at the end, you do a coating on it when you fry it up too. That's pretty cool, and I'll show you that. All right, so we did the vegetable oil, we did the miso paste, we did the maple syrup, the soy sauce, the liquid smoke, smoked paprika, onion powder, garlic powder. Now we're gonna move to teaspoons. So we're gonna do a teaspoon of salt and 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. And then we're gonna put just a little bit of beet powder in for that pink coloring, okay? So let's see, 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. And it's really cool how this all comes together when I blend it up. You'll see. All right, and 1 teaspoon of salt. So I venture to say this is probably not a great recipe for people who are watching their salt content with the miso paste and the straight salt and the soy sauce. But, you know, like this could definitely be an every once in a while treat. I haven't made it in a while. And honestly, it's me and my husband at home. And 1 brick of this lasted us a long time. All right, so I have all my ingredients in the food processor. So this is what it looks like before I blend it up. And I'm going to process it up, and away we go. You don't need to listen to that. I did forget to add the beet powder. Oh my goodness, that beet powder is strong. I just opened the bag. Oof. I am not a big fan of beets, so this is not a great smell to me. All right, so my recipe calls for 1 tablespoon of pink food coloring, but since I have beet powder, which is red, I'm just going to start off with a teaspoon and see what kind of coloring I get and adjust as needed. Okay, and remember also the paprika's red too, so that also gives it some coloring there as well. All right, let's blend this bad boy up. See what we get. Okay, so next we're going to go to a bowl. So I'm going to move this mixture to the side. We're going to use this food processor again. I'm going to get out an empty bowl for mixing. I'm going to now be working with the Vital Wheat gluten, okay? So I'm going to be adding 2 cups of Vital Wheat gluten to the bowl. Oh, I'm going to grab my leveler. Okay. So I'm going to add my 2 cups. One cup. And 2 cups. All right, 2 cups of Vital Wheat gluten in the bowl. And now I'm going to add the pink mixture. Mine looks a little bit red, but that's okay. I'm going to add the pink mixture to the bowl, okay? And that's going to be the liquid that's really going to help the Vital Wheat gluten firm up. All right. So let's see. We're gonna make sure we get every last good part of this saucy mixture off. I don't want to waste any of this. Ooh, it smells good. It's got that smoky, bacony smell without the animal harm. Okay. So I'm just going to add this, use my little spatula here, make sure I get all of the liquid into the bowl. Okay. Also, one of the things I read today, I haven't tried it yet, I'm going to try it after I clean up, was a trick for getting gluten off your counters, because gluten is a binder, so when it reacts with water, it gets really hard to remove. It gets sticky. So if you just try and wash your counter off with water, it's just gonna make it worse, and it's just gonna stick there for a while. So somebody recommended getting your palm wet and just kind of rubbing it to create that ball So I'm going to give that a go today because I've definitely gotten some of the Vital Wheat gluten on my counter. That happens. I'm a bit of a messy cook sometimes. So, all right, next we're going to mix it together to form a dough. Here we go, making a dough. Let's see. So I'm just mixing the mixture, making sure all that Vital Wheat gluten gets in there, mixed up with the liquid we have. So this is kind of where you want to start off, like trial and error, like with actual recipes, because then you get the idea of how much Vital Wheat gluten to liquid ratio you need to really form a proper dough. Because if the dough is not right consistency, then it's not going to work. Some of the other things I've seen that people struggle with when they make seitan is it turns out too much like bread when it's cooked. And obviously you don't want to be eating bread because you're not making bread. So that's an important thing too. Alright, so I want to make sure this is all incorporated. I've still got some of the Vital Wheat gluten powder loose in here. So I'm just going to keep mixing until it is together. Another thing I could do is I could use my hands, really get in there. So I'm just going to take off my wedding rings because they can get really sticky. All right, so I'm just going to get in here with my hands and mix it. You see the color? Color's beautiful. I mean, if you're trying to look like a dead animal carcass, okay, maybe it's not beautiful, but it's the right color we want. So we're mixing it. I've just got some of the Vital Wheat gluten left at the bottom that I really want to get mixed into my dough. So your dough is still going to be a little mushy. You can hear the sound it makes. It's not like a really dry mixture. You want it to be moist. Like I said, this is again a reason you really just probably want to try out some recipes on your own. And then eventually, once you make it enough, you'll just get the feel for it. I mean, I say that I haven't made my own yet without a recipe. But, I mean, I did venture off today and say, hey, instead of food dye, I bet I could use beet powder. And I got the same results as when I did it last time. So I'm pretty proud of myself. So like I said, once you try it a few times, then you'll feel like you can experiment. Okay, so now we're just going to let that sit for 30 minutes and rest so the gluten can really absorb those flavors that we added. All right, so while our meat mixture is resting, we're going to make the other component of bacon, which is the fat. I know that sounds super weird. So to make the fat, I put in 1 tablespoon of Vital Wheat gluten, 1 cup of Vital Wheat gluten, 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, and 120 milliliters of water. I'm going to mix that together. This is going to be much drier than the original recipe, or the first meat we made, okay? So obviously we didn't put that whole mess of liquids in there, so it is going to be a little bit different, almost rubbery consistency, okay? So I've got this going in here. See how white it is compared to the other one we made? Obviously there's no beetroot, there's no paprika. So we're gonna mix that. And you know, I'm not exactly leveling off my seitan when I measure it, but I would recommend for a first timer that you do, because the consistency is very important, okay? So now that I kind of started it with the spoon, I'm really getting in there with my hands to just mix it up together, make sure all the gluten and water and oil is in there. So, you know, I can kind of see if this is going to need a little more liquid or a little more flour. See how it's really stretchy and doughy now? It's coming together really nice. I might actually add a little more liquid. My measuring cup doesn't have a 120 milliliter mark. It has a 100 and a 150, so I had to kind of guesstimate. So this is a little more dry than I would like. So I'm just going to add a little bit more water. Tiny bit here. Alright, just a little. Like I said, it's better to kind of make it have to add more than take away, because then you're just adding gluten, and then you have to add more water, then you have to add more gluten, and it's this snowball effect that never ends. So just start off with a little bit at first, and add more as you need it. There's a lot of gluten left in this bowl I'm trying to pick up. So once the dough is wet again on the bottom, I can pretty much do that. All right, so as I'm mixing it too, it's also getting kneaded. So see how it's kind of getting rubbery? It's got that rubbery, like, kind of fatty texture. Crazy, right? I was kind of mind blown. All right, so everything is mixed in really well. I see I've got a little bit of gluten there that's not incorporated. So you just want to make sure it's barely mixed. See how now the mixture, there's no, it's all combined nicely now. There's no dry parts. It's just all perfectly there. All right, so that's that second step we just did. I'm back. I'm a little hungry. I was trying to do online ordering for a certain place in the area, and I can't figure it out. They're only taking pre-orders, so it's 6 o'clock at night. I guess I'll continue to be hungry. Anywho, besides the point, we have let it sit. The dough has sat for 30 minutes to kind of rest and soak up all those delicious flavors. So now I've got my food processor back out. And pro tip, because I don't like doing dishes, I don't know about you guys, but you didn't need to wash the food processor when you were done making the first mixture. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to take little chunks of this at a time. I'm going to throw it into the food processor and blend it till it all forms together. About 10 minutes, okay? So, I'm not going to make you sit here through this long blending process. But when it first gets processed, it's going to break it all up. And then it's going to bring it back together again, okay? So I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to blend it for a little bit, turn it back on, show you what that looks like, and then turn it back on when it's all finished, okay? So right now, firm, together, okay. All right, so this is what it looked like before I put it in. See, it's all dough. Then I put it in the food processor and it breaks it up. Now I'm going to let that go for about 10 minutes. I'm just going to slowly break off parts as it goes and add more chunks, okay? Your food processor is going to get pretty warm during all this, too. So you want to be careful not to give it too much at once because it can get overloaded. I've got a Cuisinart. It's a beast, but I do get a little worried about this. All right, so I'll come back when I'm just pulling off, popping in, and letting the food processor do its thing. Okay, so we are done, and we have a whole different seitan, and it's actually really warm. See how smooth it is now? So you can do this by hand as well if you don't have a food processor, but that was a whole lot of working it. Like, this thing is warm to the touch. If it wasn't doughy and slimy, I'm, easy to keep my hands warm. Not that I need it today. It's been 70 degrees out. Anywho, so, silly commentary aside, this is done, okay? You can tell it's a whole different texture than when we put it in. That only took me 3 minutes. Like I said, depends on your food processor. If you're gonna knead it to this consistency, you're gonna give yourself a nice workout. So, now we have our dough, we have our meat, and we have our fat, okay? So we're gonna start, I would suggest if you're gonna let the fat sit for a while, to just put a towel over it while you do the other stuff, because it'll like dry out a little. So do as I say, not as I do. See, my ends are a little bit dry here, so I'm just kind of mixing it back up to get it moist all over again. All right, now comes the fun part. We get to assemble it, okay? So I also misspoke before. I did forget that there is an overnight step, but it could probably be sped up. So I think I sped it up last time because I'm impatient as heck. All right, so we'll get there when we get there. So next, I'm going to assemble it, okay? This will be the fun part. Okay, so now we get to build it. All right, so we're gonna break it up into 4 pieces, and we're gonna shape them so they're about 1 inch thick and 6 inches long, okay? So what we're gonna be doing here is we're gonna build layers to layer up the bacon, okay? We're gonna do a regular meat layer, a fat layer, a meat layer, and then a fat layer. All right, so that gives you an idea. You're going to want 4 of these and some of these. So, all right, so I split it into 4 balls at a time. Just gives you an easier idea of, how much you want them to be similar in size. So I did that ahead of time. All right, so now you're going to get to watch me work with it. So you just take one at a time and you start stretching them. Okay, remember you kind of want it to resemble a slab of bacon. So you want it to be longer than it is thick. This is really just personal preference. It's very pliable, very stretchy. It's kind of relaxing if you like to bake or work with your hands. So again, you just kind of want to make sure it's all an even thickness, not too much here or too much there. And seitan is very pliable, so it'll sometimes stretch back a little bit to where it was. So you just gotta work with it. Reminds me of like making pizza dough, honestly. All right, so I've got a nice long flat piece ready to go. I tried to keep it a consistent thickness all around. Tried to make it shaped like bacon as much I could. As much as my hands would let me. All right, so I'm going to do the next slab now. Okay. I realized I should have been wearing my new Capital Region Vegan Network apron that I recently got. Alright, sorry I had to stop the video prematurely because my little rabbit decided to get into something he shouldn't. So I had to be the fun killer mom and take it away from him. Alright, yes, I have a rabbit. His name is Gandalf, and he acts like a toddler sometimes. But he's sweet as can be. Okay, so I just kind of want these to be the same size. This one's way stretched out compared to the other one. Alright, so I'm going to work with this a little bit more. Then it's on to the fat. So I like this recipe too because you really get 2 slabs of bacon out of this. So, you can stick one in the freezer for a rainy day when you don't feel like doing all this work. And then you can use the other one for brunch for the weekend. Okay, so this is going to be smaller and in my experience, a lot harder to work with. I was very skeptical that it was going to fit. Obviously, it's much smaller than the meat parts. So, like I said, when I first started working with it, when I made the recipe, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get enough of this. But I did, so you will too. Have no fear. Okay. So again, I'm just going to try and make them similar sizes so I get enough. Alright, so this is the harder part. You got to make this stretch. And it will, trust me. Now, you're wondering, why is this so much harder to work with? Well, we did not knead it and work with it as much. Remember, we didn't put it in the food processor and beat it and beat it and beat it and beat it like the other one. So it's a whole different texture. Gluten is, reacts differently. See how much firmer it is and harder to work with? So that's, again, why you really just kind of got to experiment with gluten. And recipes call for you to do different things to it. Like, for example, in this one recipe, with one of the types of dough, we worked with it a lot more. And as a result, it was much easier to stretch. But gluten that has not been worked with very much becomes very firm. See that? It is not going very far. And as a result, your bacon parts are going to be much thinner than the meat, which, is what you want. If you think about, I don't want to get too visceral here. I have only been vegan for 3 years. So, like, if you used to eat regular bacon, the fat layer is much thinner than than the meat layer. So that's the same concept here. All right, this one is not working very well. You're gonna fight with this. I'm not gonna lie. This is my least favorite part of it. My hands get sore. It's just not as pliable as the other stuff. But you just kind of got to keep stretching, going around. And the hard part too is like, you have to get it to stretch the way you want it to, right? All right, see, look at that. I can like see you through it. It's just a whole different texture. It's kind of crazy. All right, so we're stretching. I'm going to keep doing this. You probably don't want to watch me do it the whole time. And I'll come back when I have a good size piece, okay? So as I get closer to having something comparable to the other size, I put it down on the bacon, the meat part, and I just pull it to fit it and like stick it to it. It really takes a lot of muscle. So I put it on there and I kind of just pull it to be as long as the other one, and I stick it on there. It's very elastic. It wants to come back to the size it was. All right. So let me turn my camera around. All right, so there we go. Okay, so I've made my layers. You really got to stretch that fat out. Like I said, honestly, sometimes it's best if you put it on the pink and then just stretch it out to the size of the pink. But as you can see, it's still not the same size. It's just a lot tougher to work with. So now that I have my bacon, look at those layers. The fat, there's another fat one hidden in there. Let's see, I think this one shows it better. All right, so now that I have my layers, there we go. We're going to get ready to steam it, okay? It's going to need to steam for 2 hours. I have a bamboo steamer. I just put over a pan with about 1 inch of water in it. But you can easily Google how to make your own like makeshift at-home steamer. No, you don't need like a fancy piece of equipment. I think you can steam in Instapot too if you have one of those. I don't know how to do it for this recipe, but I know a lot of people from reading the Seitan recipes, they steam in the Instant Pot. All right, so now we're going to wrap this up in the foil. So we want a large piece of foil. So you want, when you wrap it, you want it to be, let me turn you guys over so you can see. You want to really tightly wrap it because this is how you keep the dough's shape, right? Because remember I talked to you about how that seitan wants to kind of, it's elastic and it wants to just go back to where it was. So you just want to kind of nicely, tightly wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up in 2 pieces of foil so that it's extra safe from all that moisture, okay? So, and this is the cooking you'll be doing for the seitan, okay? After we've wrapped it and we've steamed it, all there's left to do is let it rest in the fridge or freezer. Okay, so you're going to nice and tightly secure it. And there we go. We are ready to steam it. I'm going to do that with the other one too. Now, after you steam it, you need to let it firm up in the refrigerator. The recipe says for 24 hours, but you remember how I said I was a very impatient person, and I'm not very good at waiting. I cheated, and I stuck it in the freezer, and that way it just firmed up quicker. You can't really cut this like it needs to be cut. You can't cut it like it needs to be cut. Turn you guys over. Oops. Making everyone dizzy. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, so you can't really cut it like it needs to be cut when it's mushy like this, okay? So really, as long as it takes to kind of firm up and harden the seitan enough to be able to cut it is what you want. Also, you know, remember how I told you I'm not the best at waiting? Well, the problem with the freezer method is it'll get way too hard. So, you kind of just got to check it and make sure it's at the firmness that you need it to be able to slice it up, okay? Alright, So I'm gonna get my steamer basket going, and remember 2 hours in the steamer basket, okay? So I just explained all the steaming and put the seitan in there while I had not pressed play. We'll figure this out. So this is my makeshift steamer system. I've got the steamer basket on top of a saute pan. I've put about 1 inch or 2 of water in there. It's not much. And then I've just stuck my bacon in the bamboo. And make sure you put enough water in there that you don't boil dry your pan, because you are doing it for 2 hours. And that you don't have the heat up too high, right? You just want a low simmer, okay? Just enough to create that steam. I usually checked once or twice just to make sure I didn't boil all the water off as I went along. So we're gonna let this steam for 2 hours. It's 7:17. We'll come back then. All right, so we have our seitan simmering for 2 hours. After 2 hours, you're gonna take it out, unwrap it if you can. Might be too hot. Let it cool down completely, and then stick it in the fridge for either 24 hours, or if you're feeling risky, you can stick it in the freezer until it's hard enough to slice up. Let me know how you like it. I'm gonna put the full recipe and the credit to who made it in the comments of this video. So, all right, have a great day. Bye, CRVN.